There are moments in life when a single decision seals a fate forever. When a quiet whisper inside the soul grows into an unstoppable roar. When a man who once lived for himself finds something greater than survival to believe in. Tony Stark's journey was never about the armor he wore or the battles he won. It was about the battles he fought within, and how the weight of a broken world shaped him into something unforgettable. He was reckless and brilliant and flawed in ways that made him unbearably human. He carried his mistakes like invisible scars, smiling through the ache because he believed he could still make it right. He built machines to mend what was broken, but never found a way to mend himself. And somewhere along the way he stopped trying to escape his past and started building a future he would never live to see. The world called him selfish once, but they never saw the sleepless nights, the endless calculations, the quiet moments when fear choked the breath from his lungs. They never saw the way he loved in silence, fought in shadows, and sacrificed pieces of himself for a hope he could barely name. Every step he took was a step closer to a destiny he could not outrun. Every laugh, every snarky comment, every silent goodbye was a thread weaving him toward his final act. There is a rare kind of bravery that does not scream for recognition, a kind of courage that does not beg for statues or songs. Tony Stark lived that kind of courage with every breath he took after the cave. He understood that saving the world was not about winning battles, but about choosing to lose yourself for something bigger. And he chose that loss again and again with a heart too stubborn to quit. Grief still clings to his memory like mist on a battlefield, but buried within that sorrow is something fierce and radiant. A reminder that greatness is not born from perfection, but from the relentless refusal to give up. A reminder that sometimes the ones who seem least likely to save us are the ones who were always meant to. Tony Stark's death was not a failure, but a final, blazing triumph written in the stars. In this video, we will trace the arc of Tony Stark's life and death through the lens of inevitability. We will explore how his flaws carved his fate long before the final snap, how guilt and love and desperation shaped the man behind the mask, and how in the end it was not destiny that claimed him, but a choice he made with open eyes and an unbreakable heart. Tony Stark was never just a man of metal and invention. He was a man burdened by visions of futures he could not yet touch. From the moment he built his first suit in a cave, something inside him cracked open and never closed again. Every innovation was a rebellion, every rebellion was a confession, and every confession was a prophecy. He lived between breaths of creation and destruction, never truly finding rest between the two. Brilliance flowed from his hands like a curse he could not undo. Each new advancement a monument to both his hope and his fear. Even when he smiled, even when he laughed, there was always a shadow flickering behind his eyes, a whisper that he would never be able to save everyone. It was easy to mistake Tony's charisma for confidence, but deeper down he was a man haunted by the idea that he had started something he could never finish. Every missile, every weapon, every suit he ever built was just another desperate prayer stitched together with wire and fire. He wanted to be better, he wanted to atone, but the universe kept asking for more. When he looked into the void, Tony did not just see darkness. He saw reflections of every life he could not protect, every mistake he could not take back. It was not enough to be a genius. It was not enough to be a hero, not when the weight of the world pressed so heavily against his chest. It was a pressure he accepted without complaint, but it shaped him all the same. From the beginning, his path was carved not by destiny, but by choice. Choice after agonizing choice that pushed him toward a single inevitable truth. The moment he decided to protect the world, he also decided to sacrifice himself for it. And once that decision took root, there was never truly another way this story could have ended. Tony Stark was his own worst enemy, long before he ever faced an army. His mind was a battlefield, where logic and fear clashed in endless, bitter skirmishes. He could see every angle, every possibility, and yet he was powerless to turn away from the worst outcomes. He built defenses around the world, not just to protect others, but to silence the raging doubts inside himself. Every time he created something new, it was never enough. Each victory turned hollow the moment the next threat appeared. Ultron was not just an accident, it was a symptom of a man trying to outrun his own terror. And when that terror took shape, it wore a reflection of his own face. No armor could defend him against that kind of failure. Every decision Tony made carried ghosts in its wake. Some faces he knew, others he imagined, but all of them stayed with him. They were there in every quiet moment, every sleepless night, every glance toward a future that always seemed just out of reach. The weight of the fallen never left his shoulders. He carried Yinsen's last words like a scar across his soul. Make it meaningful, make it count. But meaning is a heavy burden, and counting the cost became a second language to him. Pepper's tears, Peter's innocence, the losses of Sokovia, all layered over each other until Tony could barely breathe beneath their memory. Guilt was a thread woven through every fiber of who he became. Guilt that he had created monsters. Guilt that he had not saved enough. Guilt that he could never find a way to stop the bleeding. He wore it like armor no technology could upgrade or repair. A part of him always knew he was building, not for triumph, but for penance. Every flash of victory was blunted by the knowledge that somewhere, someone else was paying the price. And that price would eventually come for him too. He lived knowing he was not just fighting enemies. He was fighting time, fighting inevitability, fighting the consequences of the man he had once been. Tony Stark did not die because he failed. He died because he carried the weight of too many failures for too long. And in the end, the only way to silence the ghosts was to become one of them. There are moments when time bends, when fate extends a hand and there is no turning back. Tony saw one of those moments the day he glimpsed the portal above New York. 1,000 possible endings burned into his mind in an instant, and from that second forward, he was living on borrowed time. The arc reactor in his chest, once a symbol of survival, became a ticking clock. Every heartbeat was a step closer to sacrifice, and even when the world called him selfish, Tony knew better. He knew he was already paying the price for a future no one else could see. He was already bleeding in ways no one else could feel. There was a quiet nobility in the way he kept building, kept laughing, kept pretending he could fix everything. He shouldered a future filled with uncertainty and fear, and wore it with the grace of a man who knew he would never see the finish line. His love for his friends, for his family, for the world itself, was stitched into every choice he made. The awe is not just in his genius or his bravery. The awe is in his acceptance, his ability to walk forward, even when the road before him was paved with his own inevitable loss. He could have run, he could have hidden, he could have hardened his heart. But instead, he opened himself to the world, knowing it would cost him everything. Tony Stark's death was not the end of a story. It was the planting of a seed that would grow beyond him. His sacrifice was not just a shield for the world, but a blueprint for those who would inherit it. A reminder that even the most flawed among us can rise to be something greater. He taught Peter that strength is nothing without heart. He showed Pepper that love can survive even the harshest storms. He proved to the Avengers that redemption is a path paved not by victory, but by perseverance. Every life he touched carries echoes of the man who chose to bear the unbearable. Hope did not die with Tony. It was reborn through him. It lives in the laughter of new heroes, in the rebuilding of broken worlds, in the stubborn belief that even when everything seems lost, we can still choose to fight. We can still choose to believe in something better. He was a futurist, a visionary, but more than that, he was a man who dared to dream beyond his own flaws. His legacy is not the technology he created, but the courage he inspired. A courage that says sacrifice is not defeat, that love is worth every risk, that even the smallest light can drive away the darkness. Tony Stark was always destined to fall, but he fell like a star across the sky, leaving a trail of brilliance and hope that will guide generations to come. In the end, Tony Stark did not die because he was weak. He died because he was too strong to walk away, too stubborn to let the world crumble, too human to pretend he did not care. And that is the greatest tragedy of all. His heart, the same heart that once needed a machine to beat, became the strongest force in the universe. It beat against the odds, against the inevitability, against the endless march of time itself. And it gave out not from failure, but from giving everything it had. There is a price for loving the world so fiercely, a cost for daring to protect people who may never even know your name. Tony paid that price without complaint, without hesitation, and without regret, because he knew that some futures are only born through sacrifice. We mourn him not because he fell, but because he stood when it mattered most. We grieve not because he was defeated, but because he fought a battle that could never be won, and chose to fight it anyway. That is the legacy he leaves behind. A reminder that true heroism demands everything, even when no one is watching. And so we say goodbye to Tony Stark, not with despair, but with reverence. For he showed us that even a man made of iron could have a heart too vast for this world, and that sometimes the only way to save everything you love is to let yourself be consumed by the fire you lit.